This is the sound of a hunt. But the prey isn't a fish, it's a boat, a small wooden vessel completely dwarfed by the massive white ship chasing it down. On one side, you have a few men with fishing nets and a whole lot of courage. On the other, a steel giant, a weapon of the state dressed up as a Coast Guard cutter. This is the front line of a new war, one being fought not with missiles, but with water cannons, intimidation, and the slow, grinding pressure on a nation's soul. It's a war over water, over who owns it, and over the fundamental right to make a living. Fisherman, composite character, Matteo. For generations, my family has fished these waters. This sea is our life. But now we have to fight for it every single day. This is Matteo. He's 48, but the sea has carved the lines of an older man into his face. His day starts long before the sun comes up over the coastal towns of the Philippines. While most of the world is still asleep, he's already on the water, his small boat, a traditional banca, slicing through the pre-dawn dark. The rhythm of his life is the constant slap of waves against the hull, a song passed down from his father and his father's father before him. For Matteo and for millions of Filipinos, the ocean isn't just a pretty view, it's everything. It's the bank, the grocery store, and the school that pays his children's tuition. The fish he brings back, or fails to bring back, decides if there's food on the table, if his youngest daughter gets her medicine, or if his oldest son can even dream of a life beyond their village. Fishing is the lifeblood of these coastal communities. It's a critical source of food and income for an entire nation. His boat is old, the paint is chipped, and the engine sometimes sputters in protest. But it's his kingdom. From this little boat, he's built a life, learning the secrets of the currents and the tides. He knows where the best fishing grounds are, the same grounds his ancestors knew, grounds that, according to international law, belong to his country. One of these spots is a ring of coral and rock, just 124 nautical miles from the Philippine coast. It's a place of incredible bounty, teeming with the kind of fish that can change a family's fortune in one trip. The world knows it as Scarborough Shoal. To Matteo and his fellow fishermen, it's Panatag, and it's the place where their lives and the fate of their nation changed forever. The day it all changed, the sea was calm under a brilliant, cloudless sky. Matteo and his two crewmates were feeling that quiet optimism all fishermen have. They were heading for Scarborough Shoal, a place they hadn't been able to get to for weeks because of weather and fuel costs. They needed this trip badly. Ever since China took effective control of the shoal back in 2012, every single trip has been a gamble. First, it was just a speck on the horizon. Then it grew. A ship, impossibly large and stark white against the blue water, bearing the red stripe of the China Coast Guard. Soon, a second one joined it. These weren't just any ships. One was the vessel Filipino crews call the Monster, the largest in the CCG fleet, a 165-meter giant built for one purpose: intimidation. The calm air suddenly felt charged with menace. The Chinese ships started making aggressive moves, cutting across their path, their huge wakes tossing the small banca around like a toy. A horn blasted, a deafening roar designed to disorient and terrify. Then came the radio calls, sharp and guttural. They couldn't understand the words, but the message was crystal clear. Turn back. This isn't your water. Matteo held his course. He had a right to be here. This was his livelihood. He'd played this cat and mouse game before, but this time felt different. One of the Chinese ships fired up its water cannon. A high-pressure jet of seawater, strong enough to shred nets and throw a man overboard, slammed into the water right off their bow. It was a warning shot. The next one wouldn't miss. Then a blinding green light swept across their deck. It was a military-grade laser, a tactic used to cause temporary blindness. In that moment, cold, sharp fear cut right through the tropical heat. They were fishermen, not soldiers. They had nets, not weapons. Defeated, they turned their small boat around, the sound of jeers from the Chinese ship following them as they retreated. They came home with empty holds, their fuel wasted and their dignity stripped. And this isn't a one-off story. It's a near-daily reality for Filipino fishermen, a relentless campaign of harassment that has turned their traditional fishing spots into no-go zones. Matteo's story isn't just his own. It's the story of an entire country being squeezed by a superpower's ambition. To really get how a fishing dispute blew up into a geopolitical flashpoint, you need to see China's map. On it, you'll find a U-shaped line made of 9 dashes, sometimes 10. This is the infamous 9-dash line. It's a huge, vague claim that carves out nearly 90% of the South China Sea for Beijing, swallowing up the legally recognized exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. This line, first drawn in the 1940s, is what China uses to claim indisputable sovereignty over these waters. There's just one little problem. According to modern international law, it's completely invalid. In 2016, the Philippines won a huge victory at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. The court, established under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, a treaty that both China and the Philippines signed, ruled overwhelmingly for Manila. It said the 9-dash line had no legal basis, and that places like Scarborough Shoal are traditional fishing grounds for many nations. So, how did China respond? It dismissed the ruling, famously calling the verdict nothing more than a piece of waste paper, and then doubled down. Beijing launched a massive island-building project, turning sunken reefs in the Spratly Islands into huge artificial islands. These aren't tourist resorts. They're militarized fortresses with runways, missile sites, and naval harbors. They are, for all practical purposes, giant, unsinkable aircraft carriers that let China project its power thousands of kilometers from its own coast. And patrolling these new islands is a force to be reckoned with. The China Coast Guard is now the largest in the world, acting like a navy, with ships that are often bigger and more powerful than the actual naval ships of its neighbors. They're backed by a shadowy force called the Chinese Maritime Militia, hundreds of what look like normal fishing boats but are actually controlled by the state. They swarm, block, and harass foreign vessels in a gray zone strategy that asserts control without firing a shot. This is the force that men like Matteo come up against. More recently, Beijing has raised the stakes again. It announced new rules giving its Coast Guard the power to detain foreign ships and crews for up to 60 days without trial if they're suspected of trespassing in what China calls its waters. This move has put the entire region on edge, creating a tinderbox where one mistake could spark a much bigger conflict. Faced with this relentless pressure, the Philippines isn't backing down. Under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Manila has changed its game from quiet diplomacy to what you might call assertive transparency. The new front line in this fight is another remote outpost, the 2nd Thomas Shoal. Here, a handful of Filipino Marines live on one of the strangest military bases in the world, the BRP Sierra Madre. It's a World War II-era ship that was deliberately run aground in 1999 to serve as a permanent, if decaying, symbol of Philippine sovereignty. Keeping those Marines alive means sending regular resupply missions, and every single one has become a high-stakes showdown. This is where the Philippine Coast Guard takes on the role of David to China's Goliath. Their ships, smaller and older, now defiantly escort the simple wooden boats carrying food, water, and fresh troops out to the Sierra Madre. The scenes are just incredible. Chinese Coast Guard vessels, sometimes dozens of them, form blockades, trying to physically push the Philippine ships off course. They unleash powerful water cannons, not as warnings but as direct attacks that have shattered windows and damaged the Philippine vessels. In some of the most shocking encounters, Chinese personnel armed with knives and spears have boarded and punctured Philippine Navy boats, injuring sailors and pushing tensions to the breaking point. But the Filipino crews don't quit. They've learned to document everything. With journalists on board, they capture stunning footage of the harassment, which Manila then broadcasts to the world. These videos have become a powerful weapon, exposing China's aggression and rallying international support. The United States has repeatedly stated its ironclad commitment to defend the Philippines, warning that an attack on a Philippine public vessel would trigger their mutual defense treaty. The Philippines is also building new alliances, holding joint naval drills with the US, Australia, Japan, and now even India, right in the middle of these contested waters. Every successful resupply run, every joint patrol is a small but defiant victory. a clear message that the Philippines will not be bullied out of its own backyard. While the world's eyes are on the dramatic standoffs between ships, a slower, quieter crisis is unfolding just beneath the waves. This geopolitical fight is hiding a massive environmental disaster, and Filipino fishermen are the first to feel its effects. The South China Sea is one of the most biodiverse marine ecosystems on the planet, but it's being systematically destroyed. The main culprit is illegal and unregulated fishing, much of it done by huge state-subsidized Chinese fleets that operate with the protection of their Coast Guard. It's estimated that 1.7 million tons of fish are illegally poached from these waters every year, a plunder on an industrial scale. These fleets use some of the most destructive methods you can imagine. Giant trawlers drag heavy nets across the seabed, smashing ancient coral reefs into rubble. Some use cyanide and explosives to stun or kill everything in an area, leaving behind a dead, sterile moonscape where vibrant reefs used to be. The very breeding grounds that keep fish populations alive are being wiped out, threatening the collapse of the entire marine food web. For fishermen like Matteo, the impact is devastating. They have to travel farther and farther out to sea, burning expensive fuel for a tiny fraction of the catch they used to get. Losing access to rich grounds like Scarborough Shoal has crippled their communities, leading to more poverty and a struggle to find enough food. But the scars are deeper than just economic loss. There's a heavy psychological toll. The fishermen talk about the constant fear, the anxiety of being chased or attacked, and the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in waters their families have known for centuries. This isn't just about lost income. It's about losing a part of their identity, a proud tradition, and the trauma of being made to feel like a trespasser in their own home. The struggle for the South China Sea is about international law, military strategy, and national pride. But when you strip all of that away, it's about people like Matteo. It's about their fight to feed their families, to hold on to their way of life, and to keep their dignity in the face of incredible force. Even with the danger, the shrinking catches, and the constant fear, they still go out every morning. They sail their small bangkas into that vast, contested sea, their Philippine flags flying defiantly in the breeze. Their courage is the quiet, profound resilience of a people who have always lived by the sea and simply refuse to be cut off from it. Their fight isn't just theirs anymore. It's a fight for whether the rule of law matters more than the rule of might. It's a fight for the future of a critical global waterway and the health of our oceans. It asks all of us a fundamental question. Do we live in a world where borders and laws are respected, or one where the biggest ship always wins? The answer to that question is being written every day in the waters of the West Philippine Sea by the brave crews of the Philippine Coast Guard and by the unwavering spirit of fishermen who refuse to be erased from their own map. The story of these fishermen is a defining struggle of our time, and it's far from over. To see how this situation develops and to help make sure the world doesn't look away, share this story and subscribe for more. Your attention is their most powerful ally,